It's time for Media Watch, and Emma James is with us in the studio looking at what is making a buzz online today. And Emma, we're starting with reactions, of course, to the attack here in France. We were just speaking about it a moment ago. A suspect drove his car into 6 soldiers, 3 of them quite seriously injured. What have people been saying about that?
Yes, well, it is something that we've become very familiar with here in France, the sight of armed soldiers on the streets. And we've also become, unfortunately, very familiar with headlines about those soldiers coming under attack. This image was taken by Christopher Dickey of the Daily Beast in Levallois-Perret, the little suburb, a very affluent suburb of Paris. And this is one of the type of soldiers who are on patrol around there. And it would have been one of these people like this who were targeted today. They're all part of Opération Sentinelle, which was started in the wake of the attacks on the Charlie Hebdo offices back in January 2015, then stepped up after the wave of attacks on the 13th of November. And there have been many questions over whether it is the right way forward. And among those criticising it today, Jean-Charles Brizard, who is the president of the Centre for Terrorism Analysis here in France, he says that Operation Sentinelle has become a trap, basically, that soldiers have been attacked 6 times since the beginning of this year.
In that they're a very visible target, they're an obvious target.
Absolutely, and people are choosing to go after them specifically for a number of different reasons. Now, he goes on to say that they're targeted and attacked for what they are. No attack has been thwarted or prevented, he says, by their presence. Now, that is a little bit open for debate, because you could say that, yes, they were targeted at the Eiffel Tower, at the Louvre Museum.
They were shot there very quickly.
And also at Orly Airport. So they were the targets, but they were also the people who were instrumental in putting it to an end, stopping any further carnage, stopping anyone else being injured. So while it is a slightly odd thing perhaps to say there, I think. However, the notion of the validity of Operation Sentinelle is something that really is gathering pace here in France. Le Parisien saying that they have become a regular target. And they say that they're basically very easily found because everyone knows where they're going to be on patrol, everyone knows where they're going to be changing shift, all that sort of thing. And the same goes for the police too here in France. They've been targeted many times too. Now, they point out that Florence Parly, the Minister for the Armed Forces, has called this a cowardly act. They also point out that on just Monday, she said Operation Sentinelle was actually going to be changed. We don't yet know how exactly, because that plan is due to be unveiled in September. Beginning of September, the la rentrée, when the politicians all come back to work. It was reported on here in Defence News, and basically what a lot of the critics have said is that by being out on patrol on the streets of Paris, soldiers are unable to train and prepare properly for combat. There's also a lot of criticism that it's police numbers that should be increased, not the number of soldiers on patrol. And it is something that's been up for debate for a long time. This was from a little over 2 months ago in the Washington Post. And they say the military establishment is far from unified as to the value of this operation, calling it costly and superficial in some cases. They say it's estimated that in 2015, the French government actually spent as much as €1 million a day on Operation Sentinelle. So it is cheap, and some say it's just not working.
All right, okay. Let's talk about the other big story of the day, impending nuclear war. That's what a lot of people are worried about, isn't it? I mean, you laugh, but there's some very serious threats going back and forth between US President Donald Trump, who's taken to Twitter basically to make his threats, and the leadership in North Korea.
Yes, very much so. And if you were looking at Twitter last night, it was as though everyone had received a warning, because there was really widespread panic. I think it's fair to describe it that way. Sort of we're all doomed kind of mentality behind a lot of tweets that were out there. Anne Telnaise of the Washington Post has come up with this cartoon. She's entitled it Playing the Wild Card. And you've got both Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un in a straitjacket there. And really that's something that a lot of people are concerned about. How stable are these two two characters who essentially have their fingers on that little red button.
Right.
One thing that is interesting to note is that fire and fury, the like of which the world has never seen, that comment from Donald Trump, which was made in front of television cameras, was, according to the New York Times, entirely unplanned. Now, this may be the least surprising story you've ever heard, because Donald Trump does have a tendency to
make remarks
let
off
his
the cuff,
mouth run away with him a little bit. What they say is that this ominous warning was entirely improvised. That's according to people who have direct knowledge of the conversations that were going on beforehand. Now, apparently he hadn't checked the language with any of his advisors, although it is something that he has said repeatedly in private during discussions about North Korea. Now, the New York Times says that it reflects an evolving and unsettled approach by the Trump administration. And it really is evolving so fast that it would make your head spin. Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, has tried to calm people, telling them that they should sleep well. There's no imminent threat as far as he is concerned. However, of course, Mad Dog Mattis, as he is known, James Mattis, has come out and said that that North Korea needs to stop saying things that could end the regime and the destruction of its people. Really very serious, threatening language. And it is language that is being looked at in North Korea very closely indeed.
And very quickly, the timing of this, of Trump's comments, pretty upsetting for a lot of people, because it comes on the eve of the anniversary of the atomic bomb on Nagasaki. So
yes, absolutely. Many people pointing out the irony of him talking in these terms on such an important anniversary and not learning the lessons of history.
Emma, thanks very much indeed. Emma James there with Media Watch.